Today what we're going to look at is civic duties and responsibilities. What we're going to look at in another lesson is going to be on compromise and what that means. So the first thing first, we're going to look at civic duty versus civic responsibility. If something is a civic duty, it is required for you to do. If it is a civic responsibility, it's suggested, but you don't have to do it. So a civic duty is something that you have to do or there's going to be a penalty for it. So failure to comply with a civic duty means some sort of punishment from the government. A civic responsibility, on the other hand, is something you should do, but you're not required to do it. And therefore there's no penalty if you fail to do it. Things that you have to do, civic duties, like jury duty. Remember, duty is in the word, so jury duty. It is required. All U.S. citizens are required from time to time to perform jury duty. Now, there's a couple of ways jury duty happens. So you could perform jury duty at your local courthouse, the county courthouse. You could also perform jury duty for federal court. If you are a member of the United States military, you could perform jury duty in 3 different kind of courts. Military jurors, okay, so like in a military court, you would have to be a member of the military, active duty, and you could serve there. They could also get pulled for federal court duty and their state local court duty from the state that they're at. However, if you are active duty and you're stationed like here at Fort Bragg, but yet you are from Tennessee, obviously you're not going to do jury duty here at, Fayetteville, okay? But you might get a notice, hey, you got jury duty in Tennessee. Don't worry about it. You're not going to do it. You're an active duty military soldier. You don't have to go back to Tennessee to go perform jury duty. You would be exempt. But everybody has to do jury duty. So in the state of North Carolina at 18, once you get your driver's license, you're actually enrolled in our jury duty pool. Now, in some states, you have to be a registered voter. That's not the case here. But once you get your notice for jury duty, okay, now you've got your notice, you have a card and you can say, hey, I can't do this date because I'm a teacher or because I'm a member of the military. There's a couple of different excuses on there. What they will do is they will let you rearrange it so you can get it for a different time period. And then you have to appear. Okay? You call the night before. Sometimes you get pulled, sometimes you don't. But once your number has been pulled, you are considered having served your jury duty as long as you show up. If you fail to show up, you will get a fine or go to jail. Okay, so you got your summons for jury duty. A summons is an official notification. You should have performed it. If you don't perform it, there is a penalty. Same thing with obeying the law. Everybody has to obey the law. Children, teenagers, adults, we all have to obey the law. When you don't obey the law, there's a penalty for it. So like you're speeding down the road, you're going 55 in a 35 zone. Well, you've gone 20 miles over the speed limit and you can get in trouble, and that is why a city police or a sheriff or somebody else is going to pull you. Okay, so it just has to be in the appropriate jurisdiction or area that they can pull you at. You also all have to pay taxes. So any earned income pays taxes. So every single time you get paid, you actually pay taxes on it. It's automatically taken out of your paycheck. So every single time you get paid from your jobs, you notice that your paycheck is a lot less thanks to taxes. Everybody has to pay for the government to run, function, and operate. We have to pay for those services that the government provides. That's what taxes are for. You also every year have to file income tax if you make over a certain amount of money. Some retired people don't have to pay income tax because they are retired. They don't make any extra money. They're making below the amount, so they don't have to file. But every year it's April 15th unless the government changes it. So sometimes if April 15th falls on a weekend, they will go ahead and they will change it. So if it falls on the 15th falls on a Sunday, they might change it to the following Monday. But the government has that flexibility to do that. But you have to pay it. And you have to do the form and you have to sign it. And you can either mail it in or you can do it electronically now. But it is your requirement. You have to do it. Failure to pay taxes means prison time. Okay? So everybody pays it. And the IRS, the Internal Revenue Service, will work with people. You can always ask for a postponement, an extension. There's a lot of things that you could do, but you have to pay taxes. You also, if you're a male, have to sign up for the Selective Service Act, or what we call the draft. So this is old. It's been on the books for a really long time. Most of the wars, the older ones, the U.S. government has drafted soldiers. The reason why we have a draft is so that we always have a roll of young males who could perform active duty service. It's like a lottery system, okay? Just like jury duty. It doesn't mean that you would ever be pulled. It doesn't mean that the draft would ever be reenacted. But if things got bad and we didn't have enough soldiers in the United States military, they would go ahead and they would enact the draft, or the Selective Service Act. Failure to not sign up for it is punishable by fines, and it starts to escalate up from that. So you have to do it if you're a boy. There is some talk about females having to do it as well, and that has to do with the changes in our warfare and how war is conducted, okay? But it hasn't been official yet. You also have to respect the rights of others. So this has to do think about the First Amendment when we talked about it, and we talked about freedom of speech. When we talked about freedom of speech, you might not agree with what your neighbor says, but you have to respect their right to have that ability to say it. Now, if your neighbor is making threats against you, has a visible weapon in their hand and is making a threat, well, that's called intent. And that's breaking the law. And so they would get in trouble for it. So you have to respect their rights, that they do have freedom of speech, or they have freedom of this or that. But they can't violate your rights either. Okay. Civic responsibilities are things you should do, but there's no penalty if you don't do them. Like voting. So I've made you guys look at voter turnout. So we're looking at maybe 55% of the American population votes in a presidential election year. So there's 45% of the country that doesn't vote. Nothing happens to them. Okay? The only thing that's going to really happen is that when politics are going on, their voice wasn't heard. So because their voice wasn't heard, they're kind of going to get ignored. If you're a part of the non-voting population, you took yourself out of consideration and concerns as far as government works and how they kind of operate. So no one makes you vote. You should vote because you should want to have say in how things go. Now remember, we looked at voter apathy, and this is part of it. Some people think their vote doesn't matter. Some people think that they don't like the candidates, so they shouldn't vote. Some people just don't know about the issues. But whatever it is, it's a responsibility. It's not a duty. You don't have to vote. You should vote, but you don't have to. Be informed. One of the things you really need to do is stay informed about laws and procedures in the country. So there's lots of ways that the government gets in contact with you and me, but it is your responsibility to read it. Now, if you fail to read it and stay up to date, then of course you can get in trouble over here with our duty part because you failed to obey the law. So you're supposed to stay up to date. And the government does a lot of things to keep you up to date. They're all over social media. They're all over the television. They do actually break into your regular schedule program all the time. But they also will send you mail. And remember, we looked at that with franking privileges. So every, once in a while, you'll get a postcard from a government official telling you maybe about a new law or a new procedure, something going on, but that is them trying to help you stay informed. But it is technically your responsibility to read that postcard or whatever it is that they sent you. Education is also a responsibility. The government does provide a free public education for all citizens. And it's really your state that does that. It is your responsibility to go, attend, pay attention. But you can also have private school, you can have charter schools, you can do homeschool. But it's your responsibility to have an education. Same thing with volunteering. You should volunteer. It doesn't mean that you are required to do it. So you see a lot of people volunteering, like to make face masks, to help out our hospitals. You see a lot of people volunteering to help out like elderly neighbors who can't do their yard work anymore. So these are things you should do to make our country a better place, to make it a place that we'd all want to live in, but you're not required to do any of those things. Ways that you and I stay involved. So civic participation. You and I can be a part of the judicial process, the judging process, the court process, by serving jury duty. You and I are required as citizens of the country to perform jury duty. Now, if people don't do jury duty, see, they've just violated the law, so they would get in trouble. But you are, as far as a U.S. citizen, if you ever get accused of a crime or a lawsuit, you have the right to have a jury of your peers evaluate the evidence and figure out whether you're guilty, not guilty, at fault, not at fault. You also, as citizens, have the right to be a part of the political process, so the government process. And we do this by voting and signing petitions. So you and I go out there and we can go vote, or you don't have to, but it's a responsibility, you should do it. Also signing petitions. So right now, like you see a lot of people arguing that the country needs to be reopened, the economy has to be reopened amid this virus stuff. They're signing petitions and they're protesting, and those are probably going to be people who will go out and vote because they're pretty active already politically. So that's them taking part and being active in our government and how the government operates. You and I are also supposed to stay informed, and we're supposed to stay informed by reading about things that the government's doing and watching the news. Lots of ways you can watch the news, because you do have the 24-hour news cycles with CNN, Fox, and Spectrum News and all this other stuff. But you also have a lot of social media stuff out there to help people stay informed. So that's what I wanted to go over with you guys today, is civic duty versus responsibility, and how you and I can be civically involved in our country and our world.